도시 샹기 고판 유토쇼. And I'll give you those names afterwards, Sil. Let's do our 4 limitless contemplations, which everybody should do every day and benefit the whole planet. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Semjen tamche dewa tang dewe ju tang den pa ju chik, dungal tang dungal chichu tang tra wa ju chik, dungal mepe dewa tampa tang mindra wa ju chik, nering chang tang ni tang tra we tang no chempo la ne pa ju chik. So this morning, we're going to do the last part of finding our way out of the habitual karmic imprints, which is a really, really important thing. Now, I want to start with a beautiful video. Burns, I hope Burns going to be able to do it. And I hope that our internet, I mean, we've got load shedding at the moment, so it's on my inverter. So let's just pray for the best today. But Burns, see if you can get that. Just before you go, I just want to say that I thought this video was really sensational for an ordinary being, not ordinary, she's a very special being. But I just thought everything she said was everything that we talk about, and Burns managed to put it onto video. So enjoy. It's just a few minutes long. Go for it, Burns.
First tell you something that in my grandmother would have elicited a 5 oi alarm. Oi, 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 oi. And here it is. Are you ready? Okay. I have stage 4 lung cancer. Oh, I know, poor me. I don't feel that way. I'm so okay with it. I simply just don't understand the mindset of people who are out to defeat death and overcome death. How do you do that? How do you defeat death without killing off life? It doesn't make sense to me. I also have to say, I find it incredibly ungrateful. It's disrespectful to nature. The idea that we're going to dominate nature, we're going to master nature, nature is too weak to withstand our intellect. No, I don't think so. I am incredibly grateful for life, but I don't want to be immortal. I have no interest in having my name live on after me. In fact, I don't want it to. I love being in sync with the cyclical rhythms of the universe. That's what's so extraordinary about life. It's a cycle of generation, degeneration, regeneration. I am just a collection of particles that is arranged into this pattern, then will decompose and be available, all of its constituent parts, to nature to reorganize into another pattern. To me, that is so exciting, and it makes me even more grateful to be part of that process. I look at death now from the point of view of a German biologist, Andreas Weber, who looks at it as part of the gift economy. You're given this enormous gift, life. You enrich it as best you can, and then you give it back. And you know, Auntie Mame said, life is a banquet. Well, I've eaten my fill. I have had an enormous appetite for life. I've consumed life, but in death, I'm going to be consumed. I'm going into the ground just the way I am. And there I invite every microbe and a treatiser and a composer to have their, I think they'll find me delicious. So the best thing about my attitude, I think, is that it's real. It's not, you can see it, you can observe it. It actually happens. It's not, well, maybe not my enriching the gift. I don't know about that. But my life has certainly been enriched by other people. And I'm so grateful to you. I don't want to say the audience, because I don't really see it as we're two separate things. I think of it in terms of quantum physics again. And, you know, quantum physicists are not exactly sure what happens when the wave becomes a particle. There are different theories, the collapse of the wave function, decoherent, but they're all agreed on one thing, that reality comes into being through an interaction. So do you. And every audience I've ever had, past and present. Thank you so much for making my life real.
Sorry, you can't hear the cheers. And she died the next year. It's a very, very beautiful thing. She was a humorist, an author, a writer, a speaker. She did all these things with her life. And I kind of felt to myself, that's such a beautiful video to watch because she gets it. Jerry actually sent it to me. And he said, he sent it to me with the thing, Melanie, this woman gets it. Okay. And that's what I want all of you to do, is to get it. Okay. Because she says, I don't want to be immortal. I know there's a process of generation, of maintenance, and you know, giving out your energy and then decreasing it and going back to where you are. Now, the point is, when we understand this, then death has a different thing. And she was very lovely, and she's left behind the most beautiful legacy. And I thought, I really want to share that today. And thanks, Bern, that you managed to do it. So give us a couple of cartoons to lighten us up, and then we're going to go on. People are being bumped off a lot. Do you want me to go on and then you give them? Okay. This was one of Bern's, which says, dangerous consequences will follow when politicians and rulers forget moral principles, which is what the Dalai Lama wrote. And I think that is so important. And I think so many have really forgotten. And the other ones, Bern? That wasn't a cartoon, but you can give us a few cartoons. So this is Charlie Brown, and Lucy says, she says, I'm making a list of all the things I've learned in life. Well, actually, I'm making two lists. And he says, why is one list longer than the other? And she says, these are the things I've learned the hard way. Okay. And I think that's what our karmic imprints are really about. Go on, Bern. This is the sheep with his, on his bum is stamped lot 22. We are wrong if we think there's time. And it comes from Buddhism for sheep. And I think that's absolutely true, because I think that we've got very little time. And I think we have to do that whole generation of everything. Carry on, Bern. Got any more? Okay. There's the poor sheep with his shaved head. Life is nothing but suffering and pain. Okay. It's for all of us. And we have to really realize that completely and totally. So, okay, that's fine, Bern. Do you want any more? Okay. So we've been discussing the tug of war between those repetitive karmic imprints and our true nature of mind. But what we have to understand, and I think you can understand from that, and I'm going to give you a few stories right now, is that our true nature is not in this tug of war. We are, because we're using our human part of our mind, SEM, okay? But the awakened nature is already stronger, total, with clarity and with luminosity and lighting the way. It's always got awareness. Now, when you use that true nature, it knows exactly why we're going through what we're going through and what we've come to learn. But the problem is we've deconditioned away from it for so many eons of time. And so we think, it's not true, but we think it's pulling us in the direction of our habits. But this is just our belief system. And the point is, in one moment of truth, the tug of war is over. It's over. But nevertheless, the Buddha taught us how relative truth, the karma, works, and how to get back and out of suffering, how to find the way out of the karmic happen, of all the karmic imprints, which is so important. So if we were looking over the last 2 sessions at all the karmic imprints that we have, the habit of self-destruction, the habit of controlling people, the habit of all those different habits, we'll go through them in a moment. But I want to start today with Patrul Rinpoche's story. Some of you may even know it. It's a very important story because I think it really explains everything to us about the karmic imprint. So it goes like this. One of Tibet's most beloved lamas of the past was Patrul Rinpoche, who lived from 1808 to 1887. He was a poor and scraggly vagabond. Nevertheless, Tibetans revere him as an enlightened master because he left behind a legacy of warm and practical wisdom. For most of his life, Patrul Rinpoche wandered in the Himalayas, living in the wilderness, sleeping in isolated caves, where he spent his time meditating and teaching. He had few possessions other than the clothes on his back, his teapot, and a walking stick. And he had memorized the way of the Bodhisattva in its entirety, the classic, Shantideva's classic. And he taught this entire book at least 100 times. Now, the Dalai Lama often refers to Patrul Rinpoche's teaching and uses the same word he did to transmit the essential message. He said, nothing is more important than cultivating a good heart, and nothing is more important than acting in kindness to people and to others. And he always told story, and one of the favorite ones was that Patrul Rinpoche exemplified generosity, and whenever he was giving money or offerings, he quickly handed them over to others, giving generously to the poor and the homeless. It is said that there was little that Patrul Rinpoche loved more than being able to give to others. And the favorite story of this author concerns a man who approached the learned teacher and begged him for some money. "Oh, my poor friend," Patrul said, "just say to me, I don't need any money, and I will give you some." The beggar thought he'd misunderstood, so he repeated his request for money. "Please give me." Once again, Patrul answered, "Just say to me, I don't need any money, and I will give you some." Finally, the man uttered the sentence Patrul had been requesting, and he said, "I don't need any money." He said, "I don't need any money." Patrul, in turn, rewarded him with a handful of silver coins. Then Patrul told the beggar the following story about Lord Buddha. It seems that one day, as the Buddha traveled through India, a poor man came up to him and gave the Buddha the only gift he had, a single piece of milk sugar candy. As the Buddha was looking at the candy and wondering what to do with it, another man, known for his greedy inclination, saw the candy in Buddha's hand and asked if he could have it. The man, of course, knew that the generous Buddha would never say no to such a request. The man was quite surprised when the Buddha did not immediately hand over the candy, but said, "Just say to me, I don't need this milk sweet, and then I shall give it to you." So the man did as the Buddha's requested, and he got the candy, which he promptly popped into his mouth. Later, the Buddha's disciples asked the Buddha why he wanted the man to say those words. Because, the Buddha replied, through hundreds of lifetimes, this man has never even once said the words, I don't need. That's his habit momentum. By saying these few simple words, he may have momentarily experienced the feeling of not needing anything. These words undermine greed and may help to plant the new seeds of generosity. So, Padmasambhava, the great Indian master who introduced Buddhism to Tibet, told his disciples that when asked, they should say, I don't know, I don't want, I don't need. We need to remember that. So that particular story shows you exactly the tug of war of the karmic imprints, because the karmic imprint is greed. We're living in a desire realm. It's needing everything to belong to you because of the story you've told yourself, which is not true. And so we have to set up, when we're changing in the tug of war, we have to set up a different momentum. Why? Because every time we just forget about that awareness of what we're trying to do, the habit pattern comes back naturally to us, where the Buddha nature should come naturally to us, but that comes very, very naturally to us. And so it's very, very important that we are able to identify that habit momentum. It may not be lack of generosity, maybe a need to control everything, a need to have everything the way you need it. And so your habit momentum has got to change to, it's okay. I let it be. I let it go. Whatever it is a playing out. And the other story I want to tell you is a lovely story of a yogi who was training in Tibet. He had got quite far with his training. He was living up in his cave and came down every 6 months to visit his lama and his sponsor, who gave him a bag of tsampa, the Tibetan porridge, twice a year. He was an interesting person because before he became a yogi, he was a bandit, a robber. In Tibet, men didn't have many options for professions. Either you became a monk, a government official, a trader, a farmer and herder, or a thief. Those were your options, okay, to get by. That was about the range available to the average person. He had been a very successful bandit and decided that he now wanted to get enlightened instead. So he entered into his enlightenment training with the same verve and efficiency he had applied to being a robber. He was a really successful robber and got away with it. He was in the front parlor of his sponsor's house, who was a very rich merchant. In this room, there were some beautiful objects around, and at a sudden point, the sponsor was called out. Then he suddenly heard the yogi, who was now sitting by himself, shouting, I've caught the thief! I've caught the thief! The sponsor ran into the front room. There was nobody else there, but the yogi's hand was extended towards a very expensive vase, and he'd caught it with his other hand. Okay. The beginning of the end of that momentum, while he was in that tug of war, that momentum was really, really finished. So we were talking a lot about the wheel of life, and we can go back to opening it up for discussion and asking questions. But we spoke about the 12 links in the wheel of life show you how karma, which is relative, works, and how things appear in this world. Not only a primary cause for an effect to occur, but also secondary conditions and circumstances. And the actions we take, what we are aware of, obviously influence the direction of our lives, and the 12 links of the wheel of life show how past, present, and future are all linked to each other in an interdependent way. Okay, and last time we talked a little bit about free will, that actually the impelling consciousness doesn't give us that much free will, because we may have a bit of a choice about where we're going, but the impelling consciousness takes us back to the habit. and the wheel goes on and on and on, and we choose that course of action. And Namkhai Norbu says, since we recognize that external appearances are only ornaments or embellishments. I love the fact that he uses an word ornament, because if you look in a room, an ornament makes the room, but if you take the ornaments away, the room totally functions. Do you agree with me? So the ornaments are just to decorate the room. And everything that plays out in our external appearance is only an ornament or an embellishment of our real condition of existence. So we need to know our real condition, and appearances which arise to the alert sense consciousnesses are self-liberated into their own condition, back into their essence, whenever they arise. And when we recognize that the pure presence is just primal awareness, then the manifestation of these habits, these passions, these karmic traces are self-liberated into their own condition whenever they arise. And let's talk about that in a moment, because karma is something which always belongs to the level of sem, the human part of the mind. That's where karma belongs. Karma has nothing to do with the nature of mind. And it's important we understand that. While pure presence or rikpa lies beyond the limited functioning of the human mind. So once we know this, we actually are liberated straight away. And what I was doing the other night in the group, which is such an important thing, and I have to do it again here, because I feel it's such an important analogy for all of us to actually understand. And it goes like this. The great perfection distinguishes between sem, which is the human part of the mind, teeny part, and semni, which is rigpa, the full intrinsic awareness. And they give this analogy, which is really helpful, which I told them the other night. Sem, the human mind, is like water. Rigpa is like mercury. And everything we see, everything we sense, and our whole perceiving frame of mind, they give the analogy of being like dirt, okay? They're not true, they're just like dirt. The minute you pour water into dirt, you've got mud. Isn't that interesting? But if you pour mercury onto all those conditions, it runs off them, okay? It doesn't take on the dirt. It simply separates from it. It doesn't mix into the dirt. I felt I really have to give you that thing, because I feel it's really important to understand that the true nature never, never, never mixes into the dirt. And if we understand that, it's such an important thing. And also mastery over the conditioning that we've got can benefit us now, but also when we arrive in the afterlife bardo, the aggregates and the coarse elements collapse. It all leaves you, and only the unconditioned can help you. I found that so interesting when you really think about it. As long as our conditioned habitual patterns obscure the unconditioned, we do not experience our true nature. So now we have to grow familiar with the unconditioned. There's no other way. So we've got to keep training ourselves. How? We'll talk about that with awareness, with more and more and more awareness. It's so important to have that awareness and know, this is my habit. Why am I doing it? What am I doing it for? I think a lot of us have the habit of repeating ourselves. For example, when somebody doesn't hear us, I do it in my house all the time. I repeat things to the irritation of any other beings that are in my house. Okay, that repetition is just fixation. Okay, it's part of our habit conditioning. It's not okay. And I think what's so important to know is that there comes a moment in one's life which is a time of reckoning. Everybody's life. What I told you in the beginning about what Nadine's being put through now, it's a time of reckoning, okay? A time to see yourself truly, your habits, your dark motives, your pettiness, your hang-ups, your grudges, your blames, your wounds, everything. It's that special moment of awakening, okay? And all of that darkness is a way of seeing things, and that's when a new incarnation dawns. And that new incarnation is so important because it's called in lots of the texts refined perception. I love that word. I use it a lot. Refined perception. So you start to see things really as they are. Now, I want you to just look at one more thing, then I'm going to throw it open for discussion and then we'll meditate. Two more things. If you look at a Vajra, can you all see this Vajra? If you look at a Vajra, how it actually is, it's a very interesting instrument that you use with your bell, okay? And Vajra means indestructible. And even when you're doing the certain preliminaries, you stand with your hands like this and your legs like that, and you are a Vajra, blazing blue with all the rainbow colors, okay? And at the top, you've got the three, the essence, the essence, the nature, and the expression. And at the bottom, you've got the Nirmanakaya, Dharmakaya, and Sambhokakaya. You've got them all. And you stand like this for as long as you can. And then you're supposed to collapse, exhausted, and realize your nature of mind in one moment of awakening, okay? So this Vajra is very interesting. And Namkhai Norbu gives very interesting teachings on the Vajra. And he says, the two symmetrical ends of the Vajra symbolize the two aspects of our vision, pure and impure. It's just one way of looking at it. The central sphere in which both ends are based, this middle where my fingers are touching, symbolizes our real nature. So this is the true nature that can express itself in pure form or impure form, whichever we are able to see, okay? And through the practice of the path, the aggregates of our impure condition, that's your form, your feelings, your perceptions, your habits, your consciousness, okay? The 5 aggregates can be transformed into pure vision. He says, ordinary sentient beings, all which is us, all have impure vision. Why? Because all their experience is related to the potentiality of their karma. So we're only seeing life through our karma. And the karma is on the wheel of life. It's what we've done over and over again. We only see it in terms of karma. He says that is vision that is dictated by our karma. He says, but we also have pure vision in our potentiality. There we go. That's a beautiful picture. Thanks, Boo. We also have pure vision in our potentiality. From the beginning, we possess the essence, which is the ground, the true nature, the emptiness, the nature, which is awareness, knowing, clarity, luminosity. And through this nature, the potentiality of the essence can spring forth. Okay? So in pure vision, if you see pure vision, you'll see the elements as totally pure. You'll see the beautiful colors of the elements, not coarse. But we do not have that pure vision because all of our vision is a materialization of the potentiality of our negative karma. So we're seeing this, Shem. I think people are being bumped off because of the load shedding. So we are seeing this only through the potentiality of our negative karma. So when we're going through a terrible time, I mean, so interesting, because he says the nature of water is actually the color white. But he says, if you're thirsty, and I say to you, well, here's white, the nature of the water, you're going to say, that won't do. I need a glass of physical water on my material plane. And so this is the way our karmic vision unfolds. It's actually frightening, because when we practice, at the end, we dissolve everything into that original nature. And in that way, we can get into the pure vision. It's so interesting, everybody. It's really, really interesting, because when you look at it, so we look at it, so if you are conditioned by your karmic habits, and you keep on being conditioned by your karmic habits, then that's the way you see the world, and no other way. So let me open it to questioning, and then I want to do something else. But let me open it to your questions, to your comments, to everything, because it's quite scary when you think about the fact that we've gone on and on and on for eons of time on that wheel of life, with the past karma, catching up with the present karma, going into the future karma. When we look at it, it's so sad, because we just never see our lives differently. And then we cry because we're going through such suffering and everything else. So comments or questions, be free, because I want you to understand this, because we're leaving this subject matter. And those of you who weren't here for the first 2 sessions, please get them, because it'll help you a lot to understand the karmic imprints, because this is session 3. So let's hear from you. Anything you want to say. I've given you a whole lot of things. So tell me what your feelings are about it, or your questions. I mean, how do we go from that habit momentum, which is impure vision, to change into something else? How do we go about it?
You know, Mel, it strikes me that it's really very, very hard when you don't know of the, okay, when, sure, we've all got impure vision, but there are such huge spaces that we don't know we have impure vision. So it's very hard to work on purity when you don't know that they are impure. Okay, so in other words, you can be looking out at a landscape and going, how wonderfully beautiful. And you can have a relationship of that beauty to the inner purity of your clarity mind. And you don't know how much further there is to go. You don't know the questions to ask, because you don't know that that is still a level of impure vision. I think that's a very hard thing. It's like buying something and not knowing the questions to ask, because you don't know.
You know what you're saying. You know what you're saying. I hear you loud and clear, and it's a very perceptive question, or very perceptive comment. But you know what you're hearing, what you're actually saying, because it's easy to take nature and see what it is. But what you're actually saying is, half the time, we're not aware that these are negative imprints. So in other words, if you're a drug addict, it's an obvious imprint. Okay. If you're a murderer, it's an obvious imprint. If you downright nasty to people, it's an obvious imprint. But what if you just put yourself down all the time and you're not aware that that's a really negative imprint? What happens if you are subtly jealous, but you don't really show it to other people, but somewhere when anybody else is doing well, you just put them down? You kind of say something negative about what they're doing, or not even negative. You say something subtle about what they're doing because there's a jealousy in you, but you're not even aware that you're doing it over and over and over again. You see, it's those subtle imprints, those subtle ones, that insecurity. Some people go like, I'm obsessive compulsive. I have people that come to me that say, I'm obsessive compulsive and everything, and they know it's about their insecurity. But lots of people don't even know they're insecure. They just do things subtly to try and help their insecurity. And they don't know they're doing it. And that's the point that you're making. You may see this beautiful vision in nature, but you may not see, even that vision in nature could be even more beautiful if you could see it in pure vision. But you're not aware at all. So you see, with the positive things, with the negative things, it's a very subtle thing. Like I wrote down before what we were talking about. I mean, all the things that people have that are habit forming and everything that they do in their lives. We don't even know half the time that we're doing it. Abandonment, anger, insecurity, abuse. We know those, alcohol and drug, fanaticism. Like some people are not even aware that they are fanatical, but they'll give you an answer to every single thing you say. They'll come back to it. I've got someone recently who did that all the time. They've got fanatical because the fanatical beliefs hides away their feelings of not being okay. So if they've got this belief, then this belief does everything. And that's what I said about, like in India, when they go all together for these Hindu festivals. Also in Israel, they did that, but when they go all together in big groups, because God will protect you, or Shiva will protect you, whatever, and then the virus spreads. I mean, that's so dumb, not knowing. It's real ignorance, not knowing what you're doing. And some people with control, with domination, with fear, with being overdriven with success, those are all the negative imprints. Fear. So when you look at those negative imprints, it's unbelievable, because you've got to wake up to the fact that you're seeing them through your negative karma, not through the pure vision of, this is a mirror for me to change and get off the wheel of life. That's why it's repeatedly happening to me.
And that ignorance, that you don't know that you are ignorant.
Yeah, exactly.
Ignorant, you just don't know you're ignorant.
Yeah, yeah.
Finished.
I mean, lots of people, when they tell me something about them, and I try and say, you know, it's interesting because what we do in Buddhism is blah, blah, blah. And they'll go like, oh, that's ridiculous. You know, they won't even think about it because it goes against whatever they believe in. And that's an insecurity, an inability, an ignorance, but we're not aware of it. It's the subtle imprints that actually happen. Diana, you wanted to say something?
Very much what you've just, in fact, said to Lindy is, I find it interesting that some of the karmic imprints can be so sneakily subtle that you almost, until you train yourself and until you kind of open your eyes, you're not aware of it. I mean, and I know it's something that I'm guilty of. I have an opinion on things which aren't always wise or informed, but I have opinions and I have to watch it. I have to watch my mouth. And I did, you know, until you know better, you don't think of that as a karmic imprint. You just think, well, I'm being helpful or whatever. And karma is very sneaky sometimes, I think.
Very, very, very. I'm glad you brought it up. Very, very, very. And you know what? If you have a connection with Guru Rinpoche, you'll have someone in your life at any given time that says something to you which you are totally indignant about. You go, forget it, you know, that's not me. But they will be pointing it out because that's how you learn who you are.
Yes.
When people just say maybe, and you go, rubbish, you know, nonsense, blah, 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 you know, I mean, it's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Very,
Thank you.
and that's what that tool of intrinsic awareness is about. That Rika
Mm.
is about becoming aware. Wow, you know what happened to me today? I went into the shops and there was this woman and she shouted at me for X, Y, and Z. And I thought, are you crazy? I haven't done that or anything. But when I look back, I think, I wonder why that happened. What was it that I put out that this total stranger said that to me? You know, what did I put out? And so that's how we learn. There'll always be someone to point the way to you. Always. There'll always be someone to give you an alternative, but we don't want to hear.
And sometimes it's really uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. And, you know, I just wanted to tell you that when I was on retreat in India once, and all the electricity went off, okay, and I was alone, and then I found out that Taisitu Rinpoche wasn't coming back. He was ill, and I'd gone all that way to India to be able to see him, everything, and I was very forlorn. And a little bit later in the day, I mean, I did some clearing of obstacles, which are really important, but a little bit later in the day, there was a knock on the door, and it was Jumper Dorje, the monk who lived at Cherubling. He had to come and give me something or some message or something like that. And then I said, don't you want to come in? So he came in and we had this long discussion. And I said, how did you get to be here? What happened to you? And he said to me, he's told me his life story, that when he came from France, and this is really understanding, when he came from France to Cherubling and asked Taisitu Rinpoche if he could attend the Shedra, which is the university in Cherubling, Taisitu said, no, 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 no. There are no Westerners there because it's all done in Tibetan and everything. Eventually, somehow or another, he landed up being allowed to attend one text he wanted to hear. He was still there and he asked if he could just attend the one text he wanted it. And he said, so he was allowed to go in at the back and stayed for 11 years. Okay, after that, and did the Shedra, and it was then the monk there. So he said, at the end of the 11 years, when there was no further for him to go, he went to Taisitu and he said, okay, so now what should I do? And Taisitu said to him, nothing, just let it play out. Just let it play out. Now that advice, which came in the middle of a terrible time I was having, was maybe one of the best advices. He didn't know that he was the messenger of the advice for me. Just let it play out. Because even with your difficulties, it's just the energy playing out, which will then go back in there. And funny, what happened with him was that he just sat back and he said, how can he be helpful and everything? And then he went to the library to offer his services. And then in the end, he's doing all the coordination of all the teaching at Cherubling. And he said, just let it play out. The master said, just let it play out. Now, can you let it play out? Or are you so freaked out that you have to take your human mind and you have to really fix it, sort it, find a solution to it when the solution was already in the difficulty? Don't you think that's an interesting thing? Very interesting. And I think we can all absolutely learn in an amazing way from that. Okay, it's very important. And the Karmapa said about the pandemic, we must recognize how dense our ignorance is. There you go, Lind. We must cherish this planet that provides the foundation for us to live and treasure the natural environment. The survival of our own and future generations depends on. And do you think we can actually learn this? Do you think we are able to actually learn this? Very important. So if nobody wants to say anything, let's have a little meditation and then let's complete the cycle of these karmic imprints. But I really want you to be able to say what you feel, especially after everything I've just given you now. It's like a different way to look at yourself, a different way to think about your life, never as a victim.
I want to say something.
Please, Beth, please. I want you all to say.
If you accept and
Yes.
let it play out, life is so much easier. I think we want to control everything and we don't want to accept. So if we have gratitude that, we're alive and how we can just relax. And I think the more you relax, the more you really see, like I was really, so blessed this morning because I would just let go. And I said, I'm going to play out and I'm just going to, I was really in ecstasy. I was feeling so amazing. And then I thought to myself, how come I can feel one moment like this and one moment I don't feel the way I feel now? And I realized what it is. It's just because we're not relaxed and don't accept and we want to control everything instead of being grateful what we have and, this precious life, and just relax and enjoy and see the beauty. It's like, I see a flower and, how the flower sits there and breathe and smell. And, it comes from that.
Absolutely, Bet. And that's such a beautiful thing. And isn't that what Emily Levine was saying in her talk? Wasn't she saying? She said, I'm grateful. She said, don't get me wrong, lung cancer is not easy, but I'm grateful for having it because it's actually taught me to use up every minute of life. And then when I've used up every minute of life, I just disintegrate beautifully. Now, that's what happens at death. You disintegrate, the physical material plane disintegrates. But then, if you haven't worried about what arises out of that, then it's just so simple. You just go through those beginning bardos without recognizing, and you land up in the same relative level with the same karmic imprints that you haven't dealt with. Oh, I can't. Honestly, I can't. Kasturi, yeah.
We often miss these opportunities, even with a disease like cancer. I've experienced death, and then when you say to a cancer patient, this is an opportunity, some of them tend to look at you like, are you crazy? What are you saying?
Yeah.
But these are the opportunities.
Yeah. And the thing is, it is the opportunity because at that moment of reckoning, people turn around and they don't understand. They haven't turned around for lifetimes. When I was watching Nadine in this terrible suffering on the whole weekend, I just thought to myself, I am so desperately sorry. I feel so painful for her. What can I do?
Can I help you?
Yeah.
Who?
Sorry, Nadine, that I was
It's
talking
Lily
about.
speaking. I'm on a Zoom, and that's why I had to turn the volume down.
Learn, just turn your sound off, Cooks. You've unmuted yourself. Just let me mute.
I've muted her.
Okay, Ken, I don't know how you mute it. So I've muted you also. Just unmute yourselves when you want to talk, but we don't have to hear her conversation. Okay, but when I was looking, the only thing I could say to her in all this trauma was, just know that this is an amazing opportunity. I said, don't use anything but your wisdom mind. Don't use anything but your wisdom mind. Your wisdom mind will know what to do. Should I go and see her brother in the COVID ward with double PPE? Should I do that? Do I need to be there? What should I do? we can't answer these questions. But if we sit quietly for a while, the answer will come, because it will play out in the same way that the situation played out. It's giving up that human control. It's the most difficult thing we've got to do in this life. That's how the karmic imprints are changed. So let's do a little meditation, everybody.
Mel, sorry, may I ask one
Of
quick
course,
question?
Of course,
That
Renee.
for me, that's important to understand the difference between letting it play out and abdicating responsibility.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because you know what? It's like, for instance, when someone said, "Oh God, I've prayed to you and I've prayed to you and I've prayed to you to win the lottery." And that he gets the answer, "But you didn't take a ticket." I mean, if you didn't take a ticket, you can't win the lottery. I can't give you the lottery, God was saying to you. But that beautiful story is so important, and it differentiates between when is abdicating responsibility. So for me, it's like doing what you are able to do. That thing, "Oh, please help me to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference." Doing what you are able to. Obviously, if you've got sick people in your house or dying people, you're not going to leave them to their own devices to play out. You're going to do whatever is necessary for you to do in that situation. But then there's a line in the sand over which we go because we want the outcome to be what we want it to be. Now, that's the point in the outcome, because the outcome has got to be what the outcome has got to be. So we put in all that we can to help the person, to help the situation, to do what we can, and all the rest of it, and then we leave it. But we never do. We do it, and then we go, "And may this be the outcome, and may this turn out like that," because we can't see the helicopter view. We can't get it because we can't see that this is actually the time of reckoning in our lives, when is the turning point to get off the wheel of life. In between all those things, the feeling, which then becomes the craving, which then becomes the grasping, which then becomes the becoming. We could stop as soon as we've got the feeling. We could say, "Here, I'm intervening. Let me do what I can to make everybody comfortable and accept the outcome." We want the outcome to be what we want it to be. It doesn't mean we abdicate responsibility in any way, but we abdicate the responsibility for the outcome of this. Because a lot of people will say, "Well, they died and I could have done this and I should have done this and I would have done this and everything." It's nonsense. It plays out the way it's got to play out, and you do the best you can. And that's it. And sometimes I really do feel helpless when I'm in a situation where, and especially where COVID is concerned, because people are really, you can't go near them with COVID. But now Marion's not here today. She got her SMS at 10:30 last night that the medical aides were starting their vaccinations. I thought they were only going to start next week. So maybe we'll be protected from that. We just have to accept that. If the medical aids are starting, then maybe we will. So let's just have 2 minutes of coming to your meditation posture, of breathing in and out, and coming to this absolute moment in your life. It can be a precious moment of reckoning. And Dajjal Rinpoche, we just keep coming back to the breath. And Dajjal Rinpoche gives some wonderful instructions for just being able to sit. And I want to give them to you. He says, 1, completely discard all distractions of your restless mind. What does distraction mean? It doesn't mean having thoughts and feelings. It means going after them, controlling them, picking them up, multiplying them, fixing them, adding to them. None of that. We have awareness, and awareness shines its light on our distractions. We can see when our mind is going out, and we quickly take it back and into the breath. He says, expel the stale breath. Now, this is an instruction that I learn over and over again, that mostly the stale breath comes in the exhaling. So especially where you are a bit distracted and a bit overwrought, you could do your exhaling a little deeper. And as you exhale, you're expelling not only the stale breath, but the stale ideas, the same old, same old. So you breathe out a little longer, and you see everything going out. And then he says, your dualistic mind must firmly stay on awareness. That means no analysis of the meditation. Not it's good, this is bad, I'm doing well, I'm sleepy, I'm awake, none of that. Just knowing, being fully present of what your mind is doing and keeping on bringing it back to the focus without moving for even an instant. And then he says, do not meditate to arrive at a conclusion, that's it. Otherwise, it becomes an intellectual activity. Your meditation, even if it's for a few minutes, is not intellectual. It's just spacious giving, openness, awareness and space, space and awareness. And the minute thoughts arise, know them, know they've arisen before they become a chain of delusion, he said, that you're holding on to them, you're grabbing to them. Just let them be so they don't become a chain of delusion. And lastly, he says, practice without getting discouraged. So it doesn't matter if you're restless, it doesn't matter if you're having a hard time, if you're not meditating well, so to speak, in inverted commas, just come back to now, awareness, peace, spaciousness. Open yourself up. Come back to the breath. Let everything dissolve like the waves of the ocean back into the ocean. Now, honestly, if you can do that a couple of times a day, you'll start becoming aware. Truly, that'll clean up absolutely everything in your awareness. So I just want to do a couple of last things today. We haven't got a lot of time, but I want to just say that when we were talking about the imprints, you know, being in your Alaya consciousness, and we talked about all the levels of consciousness, that the Alaya consciousness goes with you when all the causes and conditions come together. And we were talking about the impelling consciousness, which propels us. So ignorance and your volitional activity lead to how you are in this birth, what you look like, what you get, which then leads you into feeling, craving, grasping, becoming, which then leads you into the next incarnation. And we have to just keep asking ourselves, what is the next incarnation? The consciousness of the impelled result pushes us into circumstances that will bring out that karma, those imprints, whatever it is. So when people have got absolutely, if people go through their lives and they've got abandonment right through their lives, then I go and I say, if you look at your imprint, it'll be amazing, because you'll understand that somewhere you were not there for people. You left them when you shouldn't have left them. So you created that. And the impelled result was to come in where people do it to you. And when you understand that, and when you have awareness about that, all the negative things that happen, you're grateful, like Emily Levine was grateful when it happened. And this beautiful story of the old Tibetan tale about a venerable Buddhist monk who was mistakenly accused of stealing and killing a cow, even though he was a vegetarian. The monk was chained and put into a hole in the ground, yet he did not say a word to defend himself. Although the cow was found a few days later, the man responsible for the monk's release got caught up in timely matters and forgot about the prisoner in those days. The monk remained in a pit for months. At last, one of his disciples obtained an audience with the king and told him what had happened. The king rushed to set the monk free and begged the old man's forgiveness, promising to punish those who were responsible. The monk, however, implored the king to punish no one. He said it was my turn to suffer, explaining that in a past life, he knew he'd stolen a baby cow. And while escaping from his pursuers, he had abandoned it near a holy man meditating in the forest. And the holy man was blamed for the crime and chained in a hole for 6 days. He said, I have been waiting lifetimes to expiate what I did, said the old man, and I'm grateful to your subjects for bringing me the opportunity to be free of these karmic imprints. What a difference. What an absolute difference. Okay, so many embodiments that sent off intense rage might have set off a chain reaction that harmed others. We've forgotten about the rampage, but that energy is still in circulation, stamped with our negativity. So what we were talking about last time is learn the lesson of the repetitive karmic imprints, all the karmic imprints, but especially the repetitive one. 2, think and act with conscious intention. I cannot absolutely say to anyone, okay, when you look in the mirror, you're very cautious of not pulling people down, if that's your karmic imprint, of looking at the more positive way, not pulling people down to make yourself feel better, always having your own opinion and not allowing other people to have their opinions. We look and we act with conscious intention, which is really important, because that's saying what your thoughts, they become your words. What your words, they become your actions. What your actions, they become your habits. What your habits, they become your character in this lifetime. Not your real character, but your character. What's your character? Because it becomes your self-created destiny. very important to look at all of that and know that we are going to get rid of that momentum. And then the last thing is to carry out all practices to recognize your awakened nature, which has knowing, pure and spontaneous qualities, always for the benefit of sentient beings. And understand that these circumstances, even though they cause suffering, are purifying your relative karmic tapestry and are giving you the opportunity to clear these self-created characteristics that have been with you for a long time. And that these impure characteristics can just be self-liberated into their true condition if you're aware of them. You just stop. You could say to someone, stop me. And all the practices in Buddhism are merely about getting to that intrinsic awareness. Sometimes what we go through in life makes us really wake up. And I always keep this in my thing of Mingyur Dorje, when he went for 5 years into the mountains from being this high lama, everybody bowing down to him. I'd been to a couple of his courses. Everybody was always bowing down to him. And one day he just took himself off into the Himalayas and remained for 5 years. No one found him for a long time. And he spoke about how unbelievable it was after being waited on as a high lama. He just became this completely different person. Sometimes he had food, sometimes he didn't have food, and all these kind of things for 5 years. And I watched when he came out of that retreat and he met with Taisitu Rinpoche, that I cried like a baby. He had this long hair from this meandering in the mountains for 5 years, this high master, and I'd been to a course of his, so I knew what it was all about and everything. And he was just full of light. And I just prayed that he could take that light into all beings. Anyway, one time after a couple of years, one of his attendants bumped into him in one of the villages, on his way. And so this guy said to him, you know what? You've got to give me a letter, because if people know I bumped into you, you've got to give me a letter and write everything. Anyway, the letter goes, it's very, very interesting, because he talks about how he felt all these feelings of good and bad and happiness and sorrow. Sometimes when people gave him food, he just thought it was a banquet. And sometimes he had nothing to eat and felt cold and lonely. And he said, and then he wrote this, which is why I took this out. The natural clarity of awareness has been with us from the very beginning. It is the very essence and true nature of our minds. Day and night, it is always present. Therefore, one must maintain the flow of pure awareness to the best of one's ability, without meditating, yet not getting lost in distraction. Very interesting. And then he said, great love and compassion are also innate qualities of our being. All the thoughts, destructive emotions, and suffering we encounter are in essence completely permeated by vast compassion. As a sign of this, we naturally wish to enjoy happiness and be free from suffering. While all beings have great wisdom and compassion, this is not always apparent. This is simply because they have not recognized what they already have. Thus, aside from merely recognizing our true nature, our own true nature, there isn't the slightest thing to meditate on. Recognizing the importance of this, I've passed my days in feeling joyful and content, wandering through the mountains and valleys and staying here and there. From my heart, I sincerely encourage all of you to practice diligently in this manner as well. I loved that letter. I read it millions of times and I kept it in all my things, because he said, there's nothing to do with your life except be aware of awareness. It's already there. And when you're going through the downs, that's when you need it. that's when the tug of war starts happening between your karmic imprints and your true nature. Now, I'm going to give you this last little thing that I'm throwing out, and I want you to tell me what it means. This expression. We have to realize that awareness did not come into being out of existence, but existence came into being out of awareness. Now, I want one of you to explain that to me, because that actually changes your whole life if you can understand that. Awareness did not come into being out of existence. Existence came out of being, into being out of awareness. Can someone tell me what that means? Sorry. What does that mean?
When we left our original nature.
Okay, but what does it mean? What does it mean? Yes, when we left our original nature.
So the moment we started with duality,
yes,
and being an outside, we were separated from that, and that's where we started creating our habits. The karma started establishing itself.
Distance, yeah, good.
And once you're in that whole karmic cycle, in the 12 interdependent stages, I don't know how to get out of it.
You're in existence, not awareness.
You're in existence, but to get out of that existence.
Yeah. Yeah, go on. How do you get out of that existence? Because boy, oh boy, we entangled in that existence.
We've reached a point now where we are. Okay, I'm not even going to go me, to break out of existence is what it's so hard, because I have incarnated into a very materialistic, if you've grown up with this from the age of 2 and 3, and it's intrinsic, it's part of your upbringing, it's part of who you are. I should imagine it's a lot easier.
Just let me rephrase that. Stop. It's not part of who you are. It's part of what you believe.
What I've created, and I've created it.
Important. Yeah, but it's important you believe that's what you are. Okay, it's very important, because that's your existence. But we think awareness came out of that existence. In other words, we were in this life, like you're describing, and then suddenly somewhere we got this funny idea that awareness needs to develop out of this existence. I need more to this existence. So we believe that awareness came out of this existence. But in the meantime, when you look at your awareness created your existence. Therefore, the existence was never anything solid or anything like that. Your awareness created it. Your mind created this existence over many, many times. Now, how does it help you to know that awareness didn't come out of existence, but existence came into being out of awareness? How does that help you, Boo?
I know that I've created it, and I created everything.
How does it help you? Our bottom line, how does it help you to know that?
Can I say something?
Yes, of course, Vera, you can. Yeah.
I wonder if that helps, if we can learn to identify with the awareness as being who we are, versus and treat our earthly vehicle and personality and whatever goes with it as our car. We still respect it, and we put fuel there, and we look after it, but live from a perspective that our real identity is that.
100%. Well done. Thank you. 100%. As soon as you know that awareness is what you've got. You can go back. Doesn't mean you then scorn everything. No one's asking you to go off into the Himalayas and find a life and abandon your husband's, family's, children, as Lami Yeshu says, your children's, all your rubbish that you've accumulated and everything. You have to respect that. You have to look after that. But it was created by your awareness. Why not go back to the creator? Because the creator will know. Awareness knows. So it will know how much you have to put into this, what you have to do with this, how much time. But what happens if you put all your time into existence?
No, sometimes I'm not getting this. I'm seriously, I'm not getting this, because I think awareness and existence, it's the same. Now, you're not going to agree with me there, because it's only when one comes to and says, I am aware or I exist, that it then creates that dualistic thing. But existence, as per se, the word existence is with awareness. That's it. So there's, until it becomes the I aware or I exist, then there's no duality. But existence feels that it's more samsaric, because we associate the I closer with I exist. But it's the same as the earth-touching Buddha, that he's just enlightened and he puts his finger on the ground. It's the same. So there's no duality between existence and awareness at all.
I never said there was duality. I just said that in the beginning, there was, it's not even me who wrote this, in the beginning, there was awareness.
Yes.
Out of awareness, the existence came being made of the same material. That's what you're saying, the same material as awareness, okay? Just that the existence changes all the time, because depending on what the awareness has created, okay? Whereas the awareness never changes, but the existence comes out of the awareness and is made of the same material. But as soon as you go to duality and you live in existence, not knowing that it came out of awareness, you start to cling and to have all your karmic imprints and to have your habits and to have everything in that existence. Whereas, just what Vera said, if you wake up to the fact that awareness was the creator, essence, nature, energy. Awareness is the essence, and the nature creates the energy. Same material will go back, but if we are preoccupied in it, okay, Vera, don't worry. If you are preoccupied with the existence, you may well forget about the fact that it came out of awareness. And then you get involved. It's like that story of the pearl I read to them, you know, where the prince goes to find the pearl. He's forgotten his identity. We forget the awareness, go into the existence, and then we don't know what to do with it.
Can I make a quick example before I go?
Of course,
I
you
think
can.
of it sometimes as a computer game. You know, you become the character that you are in a game, and you get lost in that game. You forget that.
Absolutely. And so you get lost if you're watching Netflix in those dramas. You actually begin to believe them. It's such a good example of how we carried away in existence. But the
I
thing
also just want to ask, where can we get the? I did not realize this was part 3. And you said you suggest we get part 1 and part 2. Where do we get it?
You get it from Nadine. Nadine Eva is going through a very difficult time. So just text me, get my number from Silver, text me, and I'll send it to you with pleasure while she's just in her really, I'll send it to you with pleasure.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the talk. Thank you. And see
nice to have you, Vera.
Bye.
Bye, Cooks. So I just want to say, we're to end now, that it's such an interesting thing, because When we understand this, we understand everything, because nothing on the relative level is permanent, solid, or anything, but we believe it to be. And we believe in a self. Just both of you, Lind and Vera, both of you said the truth. Because the duality happens when we go to the I want, I don't want, and everything else. But there's also the fact that we do not realize that the existence is created by the displays of our mind. Our mind is awareness, and they're just displays. Samsara and nirvana are just displays of our mind. When you do really poignant, sorry, I'm trying to say a word, I'm getting tongue-tied with it. Poignant primary practices, you actually look at all of this and you see that don't be attached to samsara and don't be attached to nirvana either, because they're just playing out displays of your mind. And when we begin to understand this, we're not so hooked into the negativity of our mind, and we can actually really, really change and go on another journey entirely.
And the finesse of I am aware is the same thing. If you're sitting in awareness and you're thinking, oh, I'm aware, that's still the I.
Yeah, still the I. And you know what? What I want to do with you is just to alert you. I can't deal with it now. There's no time, but I'm going to do another subject completely next week. But I just want to alert you to the fact that when we talk about the 6 realms of samsara, when we talk about the hell realms and the hungry ghost and the animal realm and the human realm, and then up to the God realms, we're talking about beings that have the same set of karmic imprints, that all are attracted, and then it becomes a realm. And when we die, they say, oh, you're going to be reborn in that realm if you've got that karmic imprint. So if you've got a karmic imprint of anger, deep anger, you're definitely going to be reborn in the hell realms where other people with the same karmic imprints are born. So it's very interesting. Even if you see it as just a realm of the human realm, it's still coming into a hell realm. And then the minute anything antagonizes you, that rage just comes out. I mean, if you see people in their motor cars, if you took their parking lot, sometimes I've come in on the other side in the parking lot and there's a man with rage. I go, okay, I'm happy to get out of the parking lot. If it means that to you, have it with pleasure, But the rage, the road rage that people have, that's a momentum, a habit of momentum in the tug-of-war. And we want to take the tug-of-war from awareness of those karmic imprints into our nature, our real nature. So let's dedicate, and then next time I'm going to take it to another subject, and I'll stay a little bit for anybody that really wants to ask questions or give comments. I'm very happy to listen to you. But let's dedicate for all those people suffering and for all of them going through terrible, terrible times. We really dedicate our prayers. We'll do it in English, and then in Tibetan, so that some of their suffering can be freed and we can help them in every conceivable way. So through the virtue of this goodness, may we obtain omniscience and overcome all adversity, thereupon liberating beings from the ocean of existence, from that wheel of life, which is rocked by the waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death. Sonamdiye tamche zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene jegana chi balak dropaye sipe sole doa do warsho. So I'll stay for any questions.